You're also concerned about the building ordinance that you made some recommendations. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, the Executive Council mentioned that it is bringing in new airlines, and that's good and well. We're very happy with that. We need to see more economic activity. We want to see more stay-over tourists come to St. Martin. But one of the first things that they see besides our beautiful turquoise water and the beaches, they also see the dilapidated buildings at Mullet Bay. For that matter, we have quite some properties on the island that, require something being done about it. Because after all, what are we selling? St. Martin. It's the product. You want to bring people here? Fine, very good. But what are you giving them? You want to give them good service and you want to give them a good product. And if there is something you can do about improving that product, which is improve your service,
Yeah.
but you also want to improve your exterior. How is it that you look? I compare it to the situation in Otrobanda in Curacao, where they made some adjustments to the building ordinance, where they made it possible to have the owner of the property either improve it, fix it up, or demolish it if it was at that stage that it required being demolished. And if it was then not done, that the owner could be held responsible for doing so. As a result of that, Otrobanda today is a thriving economic environment, or has a thriving economic environment. The hotels, the businesses, the restaurants that are now in Otrobanda, I mean, it's like a complete turnaround as to how it was in the 80s.
So you want to see that applied to, say, Mullet Bay?
It is a way, if not voluntarily, then this is a way that government can influence that situation there being improved.
I remember when you was in government, you were talking a lot about financial services. Have you forgotten about that?
Absolutely not. No, it's good that you ask. In fact, I wrote an article a few weeks ago about the economic zone because I took note of the Commissioner of Economic Affairs who had a meeting with interested persons and investors on the island who were inquiring about it. And the government seemed to be mixing up the free zone and e-zone terminology. And I just wanted to caution them that an economic zone is something that's really an idea to look at because it opens up a totally different market and attracts a completely different type of persons with skills to your island.
But when you say economic zone,
yeah, what is it? Yeah.
Because if it's like Curacao, I think the whole of St. Martin is
Yes.
an economic zone already, basically.
You're so right by making that statement, and that is why I cautioned the Executive Council with the concept. You can do a physical, you can determine a physical or declare a physical area as an economic zone. Or you can say, you know what, I'm going to select a number of services, and I'm going to say, declare these services our economic zone on the entire island. Those services would then get tax benefits and then be attractive for investors to invest in those areas, to build it up. And depending on what you select, it could bring with it the type of middle of high income skills with it that will then give our young people who are away studying an opportunity to come back and not just get the front desk job or the sales clerk or that little administrative job, but to really create an environment where they can get the jobs that they are preparing themselves for when they go away to study. And when I say the creation of that environment, because then it will be attractive for an investor to create those job opportunities because of the attractiveness of our economic environment. So rather than like Curacao, because we are not Curacao, we are so much smaller, we have a different economic situation here, rather than say, well, we're going to make an area economic zone, select a particular type of service, that would be beneficial to us, create the jobs that we want, and then make that the economic zone. And it's rather simple because we have the federal legislation that already allows it. We simply have to establish island ordinance recognizing that that federal legislation in that particular area is applicable for St. Martin. And I had been working on that. That's why I went to Curacao on that fact-finding mission. And that is why I had already received a draft proposal from a consultant to develop that, because I did not only want to come up with the service, but to have the organization that an investor could easily go to and be efficiently and professionally dealt with. So it was sort of a package where not only the legislative part would have been regulated, but the entity that would provide that service would also be established.
What I've noticed, and I'm not going to call names, there are certain companies in Curacao that are already coming here, inquiring, getting ready to establish themselves in St. Martin before the separate status date for St. Martin arrived, which is now October 10, 2010. Are you aware of that? And if so, I think, and this, I mentioned it here a few weeks ago on Oral Gibbs Live, is that personally, I don't agree with it, because some of these areas are areas where our people and our businesses can establish themselves and get ready to go. When you bring in companies from Curacao already established, taking up whatever's already left there to benefit again in St. Martin after separate status, I don't think it's right. But again, the public, the business community, either don't know or turning their head the other way.
Well, I know of interest of offshore companies that want to domicile on St. Martin. It doesn't mean that they're actually doing any, carrying out any work that is competitive with the local market.
Those I mean other business, not that sector.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm specifically in the financial sector. Yes, I am aware of that area. I'm not aware of, let's say, competitive branches. But we have an open market situation on St. Martin. We have had that for forever. You know, that is what attracted and allowed us to develop. I think what is important to do is that those in authority need to be aware of it and see one way or the other if it can be regulated. But at the same time, you want to be careful not to go over to protectionism, because we've seen where in countries where there is protectionism, the quality becomes inferior, and it takes the...
But it's not really protected. What is happening is, I think, is that just that people are not aware of what's going on. They don't know of some of these situations that I don't want to go too much in detail. Okay. But I think that it will benefit to know that there are companies and families in St. Martin who can do the same business, but because of, Curacao have a long history, and they establish themselves. And I think it's now that we're trying to establish ourselves, and people can say all they want, Curacao benefit from the Nelson Tillies.
Oh, without a doubt.
And after October 10, 2010, that benefit is going to be limited to an extent. So I think that we have to be careful that our people and our business get the opportunities that are there coming after 2010, and not just that it's not transferred from Curacao to St. Martin. I think that's my concern.
Yes, and we need to be aggressive in informing our people as to what opportunities there are, and that brings me to the topic of reviewing our tax regime, because we look at the best islands, we look at Saba and Statia. You know that there have been already discussions and decisions made with respect.
Councillor, I want to ask you to let me go to a break, because I realize I'm almost out of time. I'm going to come back.